Sirius, the final herald, is the first world boss introduced in the Architect's Ring. In order to access Sirius, the player must have either completed one run at the Celestial Zenith dungeon, or progressed far enough through the Starless Night quest. Players can teleport nearby the arena by taking the appropriate teleport in the Galengard teleport hub, where they can buy a Radiant Starblight key from the NPC, costing 2 Hyper Arceus rings and 4 Dust of the Herald. Once inside the arena and dropping the Radiant Starblight key onto the Amethyst of the arena, the countdown for the Sirius fight will begin and be broadcasted across all shards until the player captures reach, or until the 6-minute timer ticks down, where the fight will begin shortly after. Now, before we get any further into the video, some of you may ask, is this a Sirius guide? Why yes, I take all my guides very seriously, especially this Sirius guide. Sirius is a unique boss where the players are unable to directly damage Sirius throughout the majority of the fight, with the boss bar at the top representing how much control the arena Sirius has currently. The more the boss bar is filled up, the more control Sirius has over the arena, where if the boss bar is completely filled, the fight will result in total loss for all players inside the arena. In order to defeat Sirius, the players must work together to complete several tasks that will deplete the boss bar over time until Sirius is defeated. Throughout the Sirius fight, there will be 2 main mechanics that will always be persistent throughout the fight. The first one being Blight, represented by the blue colored blocks that cover the arena. Players standing on it for too long will be inflicted with Blight Infection, a permanent debuff that reduces the player's max HP and cannot be removed through usual means, such as a cleric's cleansing ring. In order to cleanse the Blight Infection, players must complete certain tasks, such as defending Tuleen, gathering star energy for Aurora, and the channeling energy behind the tomb event. The second active mechanic will be the mobs that Sirius will continue to spawn throughout the fight. These mobs serve as fodder enemies to occupy the players while trying to complete their tasks, and do nothing special besides existing throughout the entirety of the fight. At the start of the fight, Sirius will always cast Encroaching Blight as the first attack, quickly covering the arena with Blight. Players can avoid the attack by being on the platforms that Tuleen and Aurora stand on, where at the end of the attack, the Blight summoned during the wave will disappear, along with any Blight that was spread from other attacks, additionally removing a bit of Blight infection from infected players. This attack will also remove a small part of Sirius's boss bar if done successfully. Impaling Doom is another attack where Sirius will attempt to summon Blight spikes beneath the player, visualized by bubble circles that will track the player for a short amount of time until it attacks. Players impaled by the spikes will be damaged and launched up into the air, but will not be infected by any Blight. If enough players are hit by Impaling Doom, Sirius will gain back a portion of its boss bar. But if enough players dodge the attack, Sirius will lose a portion of its boss bar instead. Blight Wave is a slow-moving wall that covers the entire arena, starting from the entrance of the building and slowly moving across towards the sea. Players hit by this wall will be dealt heavy damage and knocked back away from the wall. In order to avoid the attack, players must find a gap within the walls that can be found either near Aurora, Tuleen, or the center of the tomb. Or they can try brute forcing their way through the wall by hugging a part of the arena, or using knockback resistance. Although slow-moving, these walls can catch players off guard if it's casted while players are contesting with other abilities that are ongoing, proving fatal for those off guard. This ability is one of 2 abilities that can be multicasted depending on the HP percent of Sirius, where at 25%, Sirius will cast 2 walls during the attack, and at 10% will cast 3 walls. Incubating Pods is an attack that will spawn orange glowing cubes across their arena that are filled with a Blight tendril. If the players fail to destroy all the pods before the timer runs out, any remaining pods will spawn into powerful elites that can spread even more Blight throughout the arena. This attack doesn't affect Sirius's boss bar and serves more as a distraction for the players. Distorting Reality is a forced TP event where all players will be teleported onto the other side of the arena, forcing them to run back to safety through the Blight-infected arena. During this time, the channeling power behind the tomb event will happen, where Tuleen will channel energy into a sword, creating an energized ring where any player standing within a circle will be fully cleansed of their Blight infection, additionally removing a part of the boss bar when successfully completed. Crowned Blight is a mob-based event, where Sirius will summon a set number of blue glowing mobs along with 1 to 2 elite mobs. The majority of these mobs are easy to fight off, however the elites are the main concern of this attack, as they are very tanky even if several players are attacking them at the same time, and should be the highest priority of this attack. If the players fail to kill all the summoned mobs before the timer runs out, Sirius will gain back a portion of its boss bar back, whereas if the players successfully defeat all the summoned mobs before the timer runs out, Sirius will lose a portion of his boss bar instead. Run the Stars is a Shadow Wave attack, where Sirius will lunge into the air and slam back down to create these shockwaves traveling across the arena in a 180 degrees arc. Players can avoid this attack by jumping over it, or using some kind of mobility, such as recoil, class skills, or the jump pads located within the arena. If caught by these waves, the players will take moderate damage, and won't be infected by blight if they touch it. This is the second ability that can be multicasted depending on Sirius's HP, with 2 waves casted at 25% HP, and 3 waves at 10% HP. Throughout the fight, Aurora or Tuleen will start an event that will have the potential to open up Sirius's core if done successfully. These events can do heavy damage to Sirius's boss bar, so players should be attentive when they happen. Aurora's event requires the player to collect star energy, where the players must shoot down the tiny stars that spawn above the tomb, with the amount needed displayed as a boss bar that slowly ticks down. Class abilities such as Scout's Volley, Alchemist's Alchemical Artillery, and Mage's Thunderstep are great ways to clear out large groups of stars in one go. If enough stars are gathered before the time runs out, Aurora will charge a beam attack on top of Sirius, doing heavy damage to the boss bar and exposing the core. For Tuleen's event, Tuleen will ask an aid for defending them against a horde of summoned mobs that will begin spawning around the platform Tuleen is on, visualized by the red glow around the mobs. These mobs will continue to spawn until the boss bar for Tuleen's charging runs down, so having the AoE classes focus on clearing the mobs during this event is a high priority. Once Tuleen successfully charges their attack, the summoned weapons will strike Sirius, opening the core and doing significant damage to the boss bar. Failure to complete either of these 2 events will cause Sirius to gain back a significant part of the boss bar, allowing it to gain more control of the arena. When Sirius's core is open, players will have the opportunity to attack Sirius directly and deal significant damage. However, close-range players will have to contend with the near close-ranged attacks Sirius performs, represented as the white particles near Sirius and its tendrils that deal magic damage. Players can attack the core until the core stability bar depletes completely, or if enough time has passed for Sirius to recover from the attacks. Sirius can also perform passive attacks that won't be announced to the boss bars, but can still prove as annoyances throughout the fight. Blight Bomb is an attack similar to incubating pods, where the small magma cubes are spread throughout the arena by Sirius, where they will explode shortly after and inflict a nearby area in blight if not dealt with by the players. Portals can also be spawned beneath the players, visualized by small black rings that will follow the players until they eventually turn into a white spiral. Players who stand on these for too long will be teleported onto the edge of the arena, similar to the Distorting Reality event, but can prove more dangerous as there's no guaranteed event to cleanse any blight infection received during the rush back to safety. Once the players deplete the entirety of Sirius's boss bar, Sirius will be pushed into the sea behind the arena and move into the final phase of the fight. Sirius will corrupt Tuleen and Aurora, with this final phase being a DPS check, where 3 cubes will spawn at the end of the arena that players must successfully defeat within a 30-second time frame or lose the fight completely. This final phase can be tricky for unaware players as the arena will slowly begin to be covered in blight, as well as any ongoing attacks Sirius casted will still continue to persist, asking players to multitask during these final few seconds. Completing this final phase will mean victory for all players who survived the fight, granting them the respective artifact or uncommon chest for completion, as well as access to the rare trader for new weapons and armor. If you enjoyed the guide, I don't know, go play Honkai Star Rail or something. Okay, bye!